So as some of you guys might know, I lived on the road for 4 months. During those 4 months, I learned a whole list of things that have changed my life forever. I would not be where I am right now if I didn't take that road trip. I would not be working the job that I am. I would not be in the industry that I am. And I believe that it has changed my life forever. While I was on the road, I learned countless things out there that I probably would have never come across. And some of these things have changed the way that I look at life. They've changed the way that I perceive life, and they've made me, I think, a much more insightful and compassionate person. And I felt the need to share this with you guys. And if I can make even one of you guys start thinking about these, that maybe changes your perspective on just life or yourself or anything like that, then it's worth it. So I figured today I would sit down and just kind of chat with you guys about some of the things that I learned on the road. So if that sounds interesting to you guys, stick around because that's what we're going to get into tonight. All right. So I've got a little list written down of some things that I've been thinking about lately that I wanted to share with you guys. I like to be a little bit more prepared for these videos because you guys are spending your time watching these. So I want to not just be harebrained the whole time. So here's our list. I've got 10 things on here. I'm not sure if I'm going to go over all of them, but I think a couple of them are pretty important. I don't know where I want to start yet. I would say probably the most important thing that I learned, and it was very apparent and it slapped me in the face pretty early on, is don't rush through anything in anticipation for the next thing. So when I was on the road, I left in October, probably 2 weeks into October, no, a week into October, I think. I started in the Badlands in South Dakota, and then I went past Devil's Tower in Wyoming, and then to Yellowstone, and then tried to go up to Glacier, didn't end up working out, and then went west all the way to Olympic. I believe I did that road trip, or that part of the road trip, in about 7 to 10 days maybe. I was just burning through it. I mean, I was only in Badlands for one night, and then in Devil's Tower for another night, Yellowstone for 2, Teton for 1, and Glacier for 1, but not really even because I couldn't get in the park. So I burnt through that entire part of the trip in just a couple of days. And that was part of the road trip that I was the most excited for. And I had somehow managed to burn through it because I was so excited to get to the next place. And it wasn't until probably halfway down the Pacific coast that I had started to slow down just a little bit and enjoy myself, because I remember, like, I didn't even have a single campfire in these places. And me, I love campfires. Those are like, that's the best part. You can just chill and sit around a fire and just enjoy where you're at. That's my favorite part of camping. And I remember I just burnt through an entire third of what was on my road map in like a matter of a few days. And I remember looking back and thinking, man, like, especially at the end of my road trip, I remember thinking back like, man, I don't know why I did that. I don't know why I didn't just sit and just enjoy and savor these moments that I was in. And if I could go back and redo it again, I would have just taken my time. Now, one thing is it was cold. It was getting cold up there. A lot of the parks were closed. Yellowstone was closed. Grand Teton was closed. Glacier was like fully closed. So there wasn't a lot to do and a lot to see. But even so, you know, when there's not anything going on around, you can kind of do whatever you want. So I just wish that I had kind of sat back and enjoyed those areas a little bit more. So like I said, any advice that I have to anybody that's going on a road trip is, I know you're excited, but just take your time. Take your time, because if you sit around and you enjoy it, there's a lot more for you to remember there. And who knows, you might find some random guy who sparks you up for an adventure, which that's a story for another time, because I definitely have one of those stories. But anyways, I think that segues us into another part on this list, which is savor every moment. So living on the road in a van that's smaller than my bed is not easy. But that is the only time that I've ever really been able to do that. Every moment that I look back on, even the bad and even the scary parts, I still love it to every inch of my heart. So I wish that I had journaled a little bit more during that time, because it would bring those memories to the forefront of my mind when I read that, even the bad parts. And now when I look back, I savor those moments, good, bad, scary, joyful, every single one of them. I love them. I savor them, and they're things that I want to hold on to forever. So lesson number 2 that I learned on the road was to savor every moment, good or bad. That moment is fleeting, and if you are only thinking about what's next, then you're not ever going to live in the present. So there's not as much backstory to that one, I suppose, but yeah, that's number 2 on the list. Give me 1 second, I'm going to grab a pencil.
A few moments later.
All right, let's see. So lesson number 3 that I would say I've learned while on the road is physical items only have the value that you give to them. When you're living in a space that is smaller than the bed you sleep in currently, you don't have room for a lot of crap. And today I think we live in a very consumerist society where it's ingrained in our mind to always want the newest and the best thing. And if that makes you happy, there's nothing wrong with that. But I found for me that I wouldn't say that the key to happiness is having less per se, but I would say it certainly helps if you know where to put that happiness and that importance in. For me, it's not material things. Material things are nice. Having the new pair of boots or the new overalls certainly is nice, but eventually they're not going to be new. It's more about finding that sentiment in the things that allow you to do what you really want to do. So while I was on the road, I had very few things. I don't even remember anything other than probably my guitar, my longboard, and my pair of boots. I loved my guitar because it would allow me to sit by a campfire and just play some tunes and relax. It would allow me to unwind my mind and kind of reconnect and recalibrate. Now the cool thing is that I didn't play much acoustic guitar before this trip. I had this acoustic that's next to me, but I had mostly played electric. I would say probably the most important item that I had to me while I was on the road was my pair of boots and my phone. My pair of boots so I could get to where I wanted to go and explore, and my phone so I could take pictures of it. Everything else that I'd owned in my entire life up until that point, I didn't think about it once. I was more focused on the beauty of nature that I was out there to explore than I was on physical things or the brand new car that somebody I used to know bought and is really cool. Like, I didn't think about any of those things. I would see them, but like, it's just a physical item. It's a thing that is momentarily giving you happiness, and come 3 years later, you're going to forget about it and you're not going to care about it. Whereas while I was on the road, these moments and these experiences that I was having are treasured in my heart forever. Not the single brand new phone that you got for Christmas or the watch or Gucci belt that you bought yourself because you worked hard for it. That might be a good milestone in your life, but come several years later, it's not going to be there. So, like I said, physical things only hold the value that you give to them. And life is significantly more than just what's here. All right, this is going to sound pretty cliche, but I think the next thing that I learned while on the trip is that the journey really is as important, at least, as the destination. So when I'd started out going up down the road, I had a map in mind. I'd printed out literally a paper of the US, and I had just starred areas that I wanted to hit on it. Looking back now after that 4 months, I think I probably hold more memories between those places that I'd starred on my map than were in those places. It's those little parts that are, whether it's a good night or it's a hard night or it's a tired night or it's a sunrise on a brand new day in a new location, that I hold very dearly. Those are the things that stick in the forefront of my mind. Not necessarily all of the places. Yes, I have great memories from all of the places that were on that map, but some of the ones that stick out the most were just happy little accidents. The journey and what you're doing now, that's where you go through those trials and tribulations and those internal dialogues that you wouldn't go through if you were just in that wonderful place that you wanted to go. If you could just immediately get to Grand Teton National Park from here, you wouldn't have that drive. You wouldn't have the flight. Now, screw flying. Driving's the way to go. But you wouldn't have that drive. You wouldn't have those random gas station stops where you go in and you see something that's funny there and you're like, all right, I have to get this. Or you wouldn't have those windy nights that you remember just sitting up when your van is rocking back and forth in the middle of the night. You wouldn't have those beautiful sunrises and sunsets on the road with your favorite song playing and nothing but open road in front of you. You wouldn't have that if you could just get from point A to point B. And those are the moments that I treasure the most. I've got countless memories where it was just me and the open road, and there's just no feeling like it. So yeah, I definitely think that the journey is as important as the destination by far. And enjoy every second you've got on that journey. I don't even know what number we're at now, but we're just gonna keep rolling. So I would say another really important lesson that I learned while I was on the road is that getting out of your comfort zone is probably one of the best things you can do for yourself. We all know that being comfortable is great. You're comfortable. That's it. I mean, there's nothing else to say. And it can be really scary getting out of that comfort zone sometimes, whether it's talking to a new person, whether it's applying for a new job or thinking about moving or doing anything big. That being said, if you stay in a comfort zone for your entire life, you're never going to go anywhere. You're never going to move. Getting out of your comfort zone and doing something that you've never done before is going to grow you in ways that you wouldn't think of, that you don't see now. When I was planning this trip, and it was just a figment of my imagination at the time, before I'd even really started planning, I had no idea how it was going to change my life. I just wanted to get out west and see things that I'd never seen before and experience things that I'd never experienced before on the East Coast. That was definitely a scary, daunting task. I knew that the job that I was doing in the industry I was working in is not necessarily where I wanted to be at for the rest of my life. So me being the kind of person that I am, once my mind is made up on something, then I'm anxious to get to the next thing. So for example, when I decided I was going to sell my business and I was going to move out of the industry I was working in, that was it. I was like, all right, I'm done with this. I have no interest in doing this anymore. I'm ready for the next thing. And so me also being the kind of person I am, once I set my mind to something, being like, all right, this is it. I'm going to start this. That's it. We're going that way. And I had no idea how much this road trip was going to change my life forever. If you would have told me that I am where I am right now, back then I would have been like, what? That's insane. Like, I didn't even know van building was a thing. But here we are now because of it. That was something that had definitely gotten me out of my comfort zone, and it was monumental in my life. It was one of the biggest changes that I've ever experienced. So circle back, getting out of my comfort zone in that circumstance has been one of the biggest impacts and changers of my entire life. So I would say another thing that I learned on the road that was very important that I still think about today is that peace is subjective. Nowadays, I think everybody is so focused on work and money and social hierarchy and where they're at in comparison to their peers. I certainly know that I have compared myself to the people around me quite a bit, and it doesn't really lead to anything good. You can't compare yourself to someone who is on a completely different scale than you, someone who has lived different lives than you. You can only compare yourself to who you are. So I think peace is very subjective. And I say this, and I say that I learned this on the road because at the time, I was a 21-year-old, 22-year-old maybe, who was living out of a vehicle with no job and dwindling money. Right? So that doesn't look all that great on paper. Somebody who doesn't have a job, somebody who is just spending money, they're not making any money, they're not adding anything to what people would look at as value. But during that 4 months, I had gained so much value to myself and to who I was as a person that I was at more peace. I slept better every night there than I do back here when I'm working. And that says a lot because I'm very much like a person who needs to be actively doing something and building towards something to feel good about myself. I have a very hard time vacationing. I have a very hard time taking a rest day or a lazy day and sitting and relaxing and thinking, especially as of lately, this last van, I got that work ethic back in me and it was just go, go, go all the time. I'm starting to relearn that there's a very important balance to everything. There's a very important balance to work and relaxation. There's a very important balance to external productivity and internal productivity, whereas you're going out and you're doing things to progress your life externally, like with work, with money, etc., and then there's sitting and progressing yourself internally through deep thought and contemplation, perhaps pondering. Back to the road, I was more at peace out there doing nothing economically, nothing monetarily. I would say I was more at peace when I was on the road and I was spending money living out of a vehicle with no assets than I was beforehand when I was running my business and making a bunch of money and I had assets and people working for me. I had some of my first mental breakdowns of my entire life, some of the only mental breakdowns that I've had while I was doing that. And I hit some of the lowest points of my life while I was making the most money I've ever made. And once I quit that and I went out and I chased something that truly made me joyful and made me really excited to wake up, I was the most at peace that I had ever been at before. So I would definitely say that peace is subjective. It is not based off of checking boxes off of your to-do list, which personally I love doing that, but that's not what gives me peace. Peace is knowing I did everything I can. Today might not have gone how I wanted it to go, but hey, I'm laying in my bed at night safe and sound, and I'm still breathing. And I'm gonna wake up tomorrow and I'm going to do my best and I'm gonna enjoy every second of it. I would say that's what gave me the most peace. So this is not necessarily something that I learned while I was on the road, but this is something that looking back in hindsight, I definitely recognized. And this one hit me pretty hard because I realized that moments are better shared. Now, I've always been a bit of an introvert myself. I'm somebody who definitely needs my alone time in order to kind of recharge and recalibrate. So this one kind of hit me a little bit harder when I realized this. The memories that you make are much more memorable when you can share them with somebody who is there. Some of my favorite memories camping with my friends are just some of the conversations that we've had. Those memories are always just the sweetest when you can share them with somebody. I've taken solo trips before, and I've had great memories that I hold to myself, but you can only recount those and enjoy recounting those so much when nobody else can recount them with you. But when you can meet back up with that person and say, hey, remember when this happened? Or remember that one time, we woke up and we were going to go hiking and it snowed on us. And so we had to turn back around, but it ended up being a really great day because of this, this, and this. Like those kinds of memories, you can hold them to yourself, but they're much better when you can share them and you can recount on them and you can reunite upon them. So that one really hit me, like I said, because I've always been a very introspective person. So when I kind of realized that, it made me challenge all the things of thinking, all right, I'm okay by myself. I don't need anybody around me, because I think a lot of people, especially a lot of young men nowadays, might have that mentality is like, oh, I'm all I need. Yeah, that's a great mentality to have, because then you don't have to rely on other people, but then you also subsequently push those people out. So when you're able to realize memories are better shared, then it opens your heart up a little bit more to make memories with people instead of just go out and do things yourself because you think you can do them all by yourself. That's one thing that I did say definitely hit me, and I thought that was kind of important to share with you if you didn't already know that. And the last thing on this list tonight, this is one of my favorite ones. I'd say a very wise man told me this. Completely out of context of my trip, but I wanted to share this with you guys anyways because it gave me a lot of peace at the time when I heard this. This quote is, sometimes you gotta fire and then aim. So, a really good friend of mine told me this, back before I even realized he was going to be a really good friend of mine. So, at the time, I don't even remember what I was going through. I think I was trying to move from, where I was at in life to the next moment in my life. And I was talking to him about, all these insecurities I had in the decision. And, I don't know what this looks like. I don't know where I want to go. I don't know what I want to do. I just know that I want to do it. I don't know what work looks like. I don't know what, yada, yada, yada looks like. And he just looked at me. He was like, man, sometimes you just got to fire and then you aim. Sometimes you just got to take the leap and then you figure it out afterwards. And ever since then, that has stuck with me to this day. This was several years ago, and it's still a quote that sticks with me today. Fear can paralyze you. Thinking about every negative possible outcome will keep you from doing pretty much anything. And so rather than doing that, rather than having everything planned out before you take a next step, whatever that might be, it's much more important that you do so. Sometimes planning everything out can be a hindrance. There's a saying that goes, if you fail to plan, then you plan to fail. But that also has its own failures in and of itself, because nothing ever goes according to plan. I found that even my day, I can plan tomorrow out and say, all right, tomorrow I'm going to wake up, I'm going to do this, this, and this. But I wake up and then 3 things happen that I was not planning on, and it throws my entire day off. Getting your plan bulletproof doesn't mean that it's going to go according to that plan. So sometimes you've just got to take that step and then figure the rest out while you're on the way. I think that's kind of what life is about. I think a lot of people, especially at my age, I'm 24, so I think a lot of people, in that kind of quarter life crisis era are trying to plan everything out and figure out what they want to do for the rest of their lives and try and figure out what that looks like. I certainly know I've definitely done that before, but nothing goes according to plan. It never does. The best you can do is have an idea of where you want to end up and work your way there with the punches that are being thrown at you. You just got to kind of keep rolling through it and making the best judgment that you can in that moment. Okay, so I guess the last video just clipped because I ran out of storage. So if this is different, I'm sorry. But yeah, that's all I've got. I hope this helps somebody out there. I hope this is maybe giving you guys a couple of things to think about. If you like this kind of dialogue, I've never sat down in front of a camera like this before. So if you guys like this kind of thing, please definitely let me know. I'm trying to figure out kind of a direction I want this channel to go to. I never thought that I would be doing this, but if you guys like this kind of thing, please seriously drop a comment. Give us a little like, maybe subscribe if you're feeling generous. But yeah, thank you guys seriously for watching, and thank you for all the support that you've shown so far. This is kind of really cool. It's been hard, definitely starting, but so far it's been really rewarding internally. So I definitely like it, and I would like to keep up with it. So like I said, thank you guys for watching. I hope you all have a great week and a great weekend, and I will see you guys in the next one.